what's the best way to start working for a fire department after they get their EMT certification?
It's twofold. The easiest way is to become a paramedic. Every department is looking for paramedics.
Today, we're diving into one of the most important topics for anyone looking to build a career in fire-based EMS. How do you actually get hired, get promoted, and become the kind of leader your crew wants to follow? My guest today is Battalion Chief Chris Norred. Chief Norred is a 20-year veteran of the fire service, including the last 18 years with the New Braunfels Fire Department here in Texas. He has been a paramedic for 13 of those years. Throughout his career, Chief Norred has served in a variety of roles, including assignments in hazardous materials, special operations, and most recently as the Division Chief of Training. We cover everything from why becoming a paramedic first gives you a massive leg up in the hiring process, to how the ambulance shapes better firefighters and better leaders, to what fire departments are really looking for when they review your background, including your social media. And you may be surprised by this one. This conversation is packed with straight talk and real-world advice you won't get in the classroom. Whether you're just starting out, already on the job, or looking to move up the ranks, there's something in this episode for you. Let's get into it. Chief Norred, it's so great to see you again.
Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
We're really glad to share your viewpoint being a firefighter, paramedic, and all of that. We recently asked our students, what questions do you have about EMS and specifically the fire department? So I've got a list of those that I'm going to ask you. But before we get into those, would you start with your background and how you got into the fire service and maybe your paramedic certification?
Sure. So I grew up in the fire service. My dad was a firefighter with San Marcos. He promoted to assistant chief. So I've been around that my whole life. It turns out when I went to college, my brother then went to the fire service also, and he works in Bryan. We've got a continued tradition. And when I got out of college, I couldn't find the career that really grabbed me. So I went to the fire academy, got hired on with the smaller department, and then came to New Braunfels. I've been here approximately 18 years. I've been a paramedic since 2013. And I've progressed throughout the various ranks, and I'm currently transitioning from the Division Chief of Training over to a Battalion Chief of Operations over A shift.
Wow. What made you go to paramedic school?
It was actually tied to a promotion. At the time when you promoted, you got sent, and those people were assigned to the ambulance. It wasn't, it sounds like a forced move. It wasn't a forced move. It was the spot that created the opportunity for me. So I went, and there were 6 of us that were all part of this class. And so we went to 2 separate programs at the same time, all tied to that same deal. So it was great having others to share my experiences with, the troubles, frustrations. Hey, what do you think about this? And it was a great peer opportunity.
And did you have ambulances at that time?
Yes. So
okay.
When I first started, we were first responder only. So I did not have experience with the ambulance until I came to New Braunfels.
What was that like being a brand new paramedic running calls with some of the firefighters that you had worked with before, and now suddenly you're in charge?
It was difficult. When I came out of school, I was not cleared to be a paramedic yet, but I had promoted. So I was technically in charge of the ambulance, making operational decisions, not patient care decisions, just operational decisions. And I had a paramedic partner. And as soon as I got my paramedic certification, it was me in charge of the ambulance, in charge of patient care, the primary responsibility. So it was very nerve-wracking, but it also put me in a situation to start my first steps of leadership within the department. And I've recognized that people throughout the time in New Braunfels, the busier they are on the ambulances, the typically more squared away they are, the better prepared they are. They take that leadership role a little more seriously. And I think it's because they recognize that their first step of leadership was on the ambulance.
Tell me more about that. I've never heard that before, but I find that fascinating.
As far as the leadership role?
Well, the fact that the more calls you run, the better leader you are.
So I think it's experience in all levels. If you're a firefighter and you run a ton of fires, you have more experience. You can tell the next guy that hasn't been there as often, this is what to expect. And so as that engineer in charge of the ambulance, I wanted to run as many calls as I could. I took every call that I could. And not because I was the most experienced, because I had a very senior crew, but because I wanted to build that experience. I took that responsibility on myself. But then I was also humble enough, I feel, to ask those guys, how do you think I did? Where could we improve? But also set the expectation that this ambulance will be a good quality ambulance. We're going to do what's right for the patients. And I think our whole crew jumped on that. And every patient we went to, we treated with the utmost respect and tried to make it their worst day a little bit better.
I want to unpack that a little bit further here in just a few minutes, the difference between firefighter seniority and that kind of chain of command. But let's focus right now just on the ambulance. As you started cutting your teeth on the ambulance, a lot of people are really scared when they come out of school. To me, I say it's like getting launched off of an aircraft carrier and you hope you fly and don't just crash in front of the ship. What were some of the things that you did to be successful on those early calls?
I think that the huge thing is you have a rapport with your crew. That's number one, that they don't want you to fail. They're going to help build you up. But beyond that, things that I can control on my own is education on duty and off duty. You can't just hope to be good and show up on your work day and think that's going to be enough. You have to come in and follow different podcasts like this one, or there were certain ECG websites and videos that we watched all the time. And it was, you learn something and then you go out and you practice it. Can you explain it to somebody else? Can you recreate it? And so I just kept trying to dive into more and more EMS because my whole goal was to be the best that I could be. I didn't want to just get by, and I just kept striving to get better and better each day that I was on the ambulance.
It seems like when people graduate from paramedic school or EMT school, there's one specific type of call that scares the heck out of them. Did you have something like that? And what did you do to overcome that?
I think the call, and it not a specific type, but the areas that concerned me were the call types that led into an RSI, a rapid intubation, or something tied to a pediatric call. And those were the low frequency, higher risk calls. And so familiarization with the medications that we carried, how long it takes for at the time it was Versed and Etomidate was our primary. And then we followed up with Vecuronium as a paralytic. So if you know what time limits you have there, what your restraints and how the medication is going to react, it makes you a little more comfortable. And then again, I got to rely on that senior crew that helped guide me as I'm getting my baby steps. They're going like, slow down just a little bit. We've got this. You know you're going to get the airway. You've already visualized. You've gone through those steps and practices. When I first became a paramedic, we were just venturing into the video laryngoscope. And so we only had that on 1 or 2 units. So I got to play with it in school. I didn't have it on my unit when I first got on the ambulance. So I had to use manual laryngoscopy. And then we transitioned to the video, which was a huge difference. It allowed my partner to look over my shoulder and confirm that I'm seeing the same thing that they're seeing. And it was a huge growth tool for me.
Yeah, I really like the video laryngoscopes. We don't teach a lot of it in school just because they are pretty expensive, but there's nothing like being able to have 5 or 6 people standing over your shoulder and looking in and saying, yeah, I saw it pass through the vocal cords. Yeah.
Absolutely. I had one that got questioned and my instructor was sitting right behind me. He goes, I saw it through the cords. We had rise and fall, all the confirmation techniques that you need, and shared it to the hospital. And they're like, okay, we're good. So it was that nice confirmation point, like you said.
So I know some fire departments are working 48-hour shifts now. I'm guessing that when you were on the ambulance, you were working probably 24, 48s?
Correct.
24. Were you assigned one day on the ambulance and then like the next day on an engine or a ladder or something?
We had one level of engineer, and that was you came in and you moved to the ambulance. And then as a spot opened up on an engine, you could move over by seniority. And so those spots did not come open very often because it seemed like we either had a younger engineer group on those engines or people stayed, they were hitting that 30, 35 years. So I was assigned to the ambulance, and that was my primary role. Every day, the ways that I got off was stepping up to lieutenant if the lieutenant was off, or if the engineer on the engine was off, I got to slide over and drive for that day. But probably 85, 90% was assigned to the ambulance.
Wow, that seems like a lot. I know some departments rotate or on a 48-hour shift, it's 24 on the ambulance, 24 on the engine. How did you deal with being a paramedic on an ambulance? You're pretty much the leader on scene on any sort of patient oriented call. You're it, you're the leader. And so people are listening to you. How did you transition then from being an engineer on an engine or a ladder truck and not being the top dog anymore and not making all the decisions on the scene? Was that a challenge for you or was it pretty easy?
So I never trained from my engineer on the ambulance to an engineer on the engine on a full-time capacity. I did that only on those transition days when I'd slide over. It wasn't difficult because paramedicine or responding to a call or treatment is a team game. So it doesn't matter who's in charge of that call. You come in and you fill the role that you're assigned to. So it's like baseball that I may normally play second base, but today they need me at third base. I'm not changing how second base plays their position. I'm just doing what I can in my assigned role for the day. And so whoever is running that call and they tell me that I'm in charge of airway or that I need the IV, then I know what my tasks are and it's easy to fill those roles and do whatever else is needed.
What do you think some of the transferable skills or the soft skills that you learned as a paramedic, how did that help you promote or later on in the department?
I think the first part is soft skill of relating to people or the kinder, gentler voice to people. There's times you get called at 3 a.m. for a fall or a lift assist or whatever it may be that you don't want to be there, or you've been to that person multiple times and they're having a bad day and you have to come in and you have to use your kinder, gentler voice to get across to them. You can't just come and be stern with everything. And that helps with that relationship. You get a lot more compliance with your patients when you're in a good spirit, good attitude with them. The other side is it forced me to learn some tough conversations at work when somebody isn't doing quite what the expectation is, or they're not doing the training that they need to have. That as that leader on the ambulance, I had to share my expectation, or I can't just tell them to do it. We would come and then train as a station or a group trying to make everybody better. And when I became an officer, I carried that over, that there's pride in the ambulance that I was on. I became an engine lieutenant and there's pride in my station. And I expected the same pride from everybody that was assigned to me.
Can you give us your philosophy about tough conversations or difficult conversations? How do you approach them? And can you give us an example?
I tried to be honest and transparent. Most of the time, the conversation that you're having, the person is aware that it's coming. Very seldom in the experience that I've had, they've been shocked by it. They maybe don't want to have it, but go, hey, we need to sit down. We need to iron this out. Tell me what you're thinking, and try not to jump to conclusions on what they're thinking or what you heard is happening, especially if there's a complaint. Go, I want to know what happened on this call. Let them explain it and go, okay, here's why we can do that. Here's why we can't. This makes sense, and try to be firm. And what has always helped me is I've had an expectation, a basic level of we are going to do the right thing. Every position that I've been in, every department, every assignment, that's the philosophy. And that's the same philosophy that I'm sharing with my shift right now is we're going to show up and we're going to do the right thing. And so if we have a conversation because you're not doing the right thing, I've already set that expectation. It shouldn't be hard to adjust to that or understand why we're having the conversation.
Can you share any examples, protecting the innocent, but do you have an example of a difficult conversation that you might have had and how it went well as just an example?
I can't necessarily say it went well, but difficult conversation. So in my role as training, I was responsible for new hire classes. Everybody that comes in, and they came in and did anywhere from a 6 to 8 week orientation based on whether they were a basic or a paramedic. And we had one guy that was here, and he's going through the process, doing the whole orientation, and he's not quite meeting the standard. We're catching things that are safety concerns. So we sit down and we have a conversation, and we're talking through this, and he's okay. I understand. I understand. And I'm just telling him, you're not meeting the expectation. I'm not sure it's safe to put you in the field right now. And he said, no, I understand what you're saying. He goes, if I don't start doing substantially better, then I understand we'll separate. I'm like, oh, okay. That was from him. And the long story short, it didn't get better. And then there were some opportunities that fire administration wanted to evaluate or wanted to try out with him. And so we kept him on and ran him through the EMS portion. And he came back to me and he said, I don't understand why you're still keeping me here if you're making me do this extra stuff. Like trying to buck the extra training we're providing and having the conversation of, you're not meeting our standard. We're providing extra opportunities for you. We want to see you succeed. And him not quite grasping what we're trying to do, it was frustrating on my part because I felt like we were going above and beyond, but I just tried to be that transparent conversation and share, like I said, the expectation is that you are doing your job, you're doing it safely, and you are an attribute to your team and the department. And here's what we need to do to get you to that point.
And do you normally help them develop a plan for improvement? Do you work with them? I've seen it done both ways. Sometimes it's dictatorial, like, nope, this is how it's going to be. And then other times it's, go ahead, you write the plan, I'll look at it and revise it.
Typically, we speak to whoever may be involved. If it's pertaining to training on shift, or if it's just our new hire orientation, we'll bring in the key input members or key stakeholders and go, what do you see? And then we'll develop a plan that addresses those weaknesses, get some buy-in from administration, obviously, because most of our plans, and we don't treat them as performance improvement unless it's a true attitude adjustment. Ours are training plans. We're going to give you tools to make you better. We want to bring you in off duty and work you one-on-one with a paramedic, one of our instructors. We want to do extra hose handling, whatever it may be, because we want to see you succeed. We don't want to just say you're on this plan and give you no guidance. We set a plan in place. We get buy-in from everybody, and then we come out and present it. We explain it to them one-on-one. Sometimes that is that tough conversation because they're like, I didn't realize I was doing that bad. I thought I was doing okay. I'm like, I'm sorry that right now what you're doing is not up to our standard. Here's what we need you to do. And it's normally about a 3 to 6 month plan, depending on what skill set they're trying to do, how many classes. We've had some in the past that have been some officer development or leadership development. And we go, there's the TEACS Leadership Symposium coming up. We want you to attend that and give us a report on what you found. Or here's some good leadership books. Give us just a brief synopsis of what you are taking away from these books.
And is that usually helpful, sending them to a symposium or something like that?
It has been. It creates, what I've recognized in those symposiums is you get all different types of leaders. So you may not click with person A and you sit in the next session. Person B actually is on your same path and you understand what you're missing and they speak on your same level and you take a little more away from that.
Yeah. So one of the questions from our students is, what's the best way to start working for a fire department after they get their EMT certification?
It's twofold. The easiest way is to become a paramedic. Every department is looking for paramedics. The best way, and what I tell everybody that calls and says, how do I get in? Anybody that does ride-outs with us is, don't just pick your dream department and hope to stay there. Test everywhere and get your foot in the door. Start getting experience. Start finding some of those skill sets that they want to see. If it's volunteering at a department, so you know how to pull hose a little better, you get used to doing some patient care. Now you get in, you understand what the fire service and EMS life is. Go get experience as soon as you can, start developing. And then if you choose to go to a larger department, or you want to go from EMS to fire or fire to EMS, you want to become a paramedic, now you have some groundwork already set. and you're able to make that transition a little better.
So do you recommend that most people get their paramedic before they get hired by a fire department?
I've actually asked our paramedic class that's going on right now, if they were coming in, would they recommend that? And I asked because my son's a senior in high school and he's looking at this, and I'm asking, should he go straight to paramedic or should he get his experience? And the overwhelming feedback that came from them was they recommend getting experience as a basic because you learn how to operate on the ambulance. You learn how to stock equipment, how to set up a nasal cannula, how to start an IV spike a bag, things that if you just came straight from the street, you would never know. And they mentioned that there was one of the students that they were doing a scenario. It's like, hey, I need you to spike a bag, common lingo for a paramedic. And this was a student that went straight from hired to basic to paramedic. He did not know what that meant. So
in football, spike the bag,
yeah.
like you spike the ball.
In a paramedic field, and when you're running this call and you say that, now they have to slow down and backtrack to some of the things that are a little more basic for somebody that has been in a basic or EMS capacity for even just a little bit. And so it felt like that person was behind the curve just a little. Not that they won't succeed. They'll come in, they'll get their marching orders, and they'll be fine. But it's just one of those that you're already behind the curve. So recognize that you have a little more learning to do.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just on a Zoom call with the UCLA paramedic program director, and we were talking about California is one of the states that requires at least 6 months of EMT experience before they go on to paramedic. In Texas, we don't require that, but a lot of programs see the benefit of that. The challenge is that sometimes people go and they start working and then they start making money and supporting a family, and going to paramedic school full time, especially a 12-month kind of accelerated program, can be really difficult. So it's a coin toss, right? Which one comes first? But I'm assuming New Braunfels is a civil service department?
Yes, sir.
And we'll talk about that in a minute, but do you give extra points if they already have their paramedic certification?
We have done a couple different ways. So we have done in the past that we just give 5 points for paramedic. We have done it to where we've done paramedic preference, that our paramedics go to the top of the list regardless of score. We're tossing around the idea of doing a firefighter paramedic only test because of the cost and time that it takes to get paramedics or to put somebody through school, that there is a benefit to hiring paramedics. That's why I say if you want a job, be a paramedic, that you are pretty much guaranteed everybody in this area or around the state are looking for paramedics.
Yeah, for somebody who doesn't understand what civil service is, can you explain the process versus maybe some of the smaller departments that don't have civil service?
So civil service is a governmental law that dictates or mandates how you hire, fire, promote within your organization. So when you come in and get hired with a civil service department, it is a general aptitude test. You don't need fire or EMS knowledge. It's just general knowledge base. Most departments, unless you're really large, like a Houston, Austin, San Antonio, most of them require you to have that cert because it's hard to take on the salary of those people. So we come in with that process, and we still want somebody that's either been through classes or currently enrolled in classes. They have to have that to test with us, but they do have to have the full certification when they get hired.
And you're saying certification, the firefighter certification, right?
And an EMT.
Firefighter EMT. Okay.
Yes. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the smaller departments that I've experienced, they don't have to have the same testing. And let me back up. Civil service has the written test, so that's your score. And then there's a physical agility, and then that plays into your rank. And then there's a background. A lot do a polygraph or interview, something along those lines. The smaller departments, they don't necessarily have to go by that order. They can decide, I just want a physical agility test, and the highest one moves on. They can select how they want. We can go, we only want a written test. We don't care about anything else. And so they're not bound by the same restrictions that civil service departments are bound by.
And so once everybody completes your process, they're put in a big, long list. Sometimes I'm guessing you have 50 or 75 people or more on a list?
It depends on the years. When we were in the COVID timeframe, we were in the 20s would make a list, and that it's really hard because Sometimes you lose more than that. Now you're having to test multiple times. This last year, I believe our eligibility list was about 85 or 90 people, which is good.
Yeah.
What is difficult is only about 6, 8, 10 of those were paramedics. And so we're trying to capture as many paramedics as we can. And because our goal as a department is 100% paramedic. So if we can bring those in, if we can do something to draw them to us, then absolutely.
And so once they're on that civil service list, you pretty much have to hire in order. Is that correct? And if you only have 6 openings or 8 openings, you have to hire from that list. Or if they have their paramedic, do they get, you said at one point you were putting them to the front of the line?
So through a strictly civil service department, it's based on your written test score, and then you have all of your other stuff, and then there's your eligibility list, and you hire from the top down. You can't skip over somebody unless there's due cause. Where New Braunfels is a little different is we have meet and confer, which is like a baby version of collective bargaining. And so our administration and our firefighter association has come to the agreement that we want to do paramedic preference. So everybody has recognized that, and that's how you get those extra points. We moved them up to the top. We didn't want to give more points than what we give to a veteran because we do 5 points for that also. But the only way that we could change that list was through that meet and confer process. And that's the same thing about accepting people that are non-certified, that are eligible, that they're on the list. But if they have not completed EMT or they don't have their state certification, we will pass them over, but leave them on the list. And that was done through our meet and confer agreements.
Okay. What's your best advice other than becoming a paramedic for getting through that hiring process? And how long does it normally take to get off of that list?
The best advice where I see the most people miss out on this is one, when you are a couple things. When you take your
CPAT?
No, entrance exam. Sorry about that. When you take your entrance exam, it's a test just like anything else. There are study guides for it. Get what you can to get that information so you're up in that 95 percentile. You're not sitting at a 70 or an 80. And then when you come to the background, follow the instructions. There are little instructions that say use blue ink, not black ink, or whatever it may be, that you must fill this out. Do not get your mom, dad, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever to fill it out for you. You must be the one to fill it out. And so when you come in for your background interview and you sign a piece of paper and you write that you did it, if these two handwritings don't match, then you get questioned on that. Who filled this out? Because you're not following directions. And that's one of the big things that we look at is your ability to follow directions. So study for the test, do what's instructed for the background, and make sure you have a clean background. And I tell my son's friends, all the high school students, that be careful what you do now. It can affect the rest of your life. And so if you go out and you make some stupid choices early on, it can definitely affect you. So thinking right now that, if I shoplift this one little thing, no big deal. It stays with you and it can affect your career long term.
Do you look at their social media accounts?
We do. Absolutely. And it's funny because a lot of people have caught on to that. So they delete accounts before they apply with us. But there are some that it is very surprising what they share, what they leave up. And we use that as a representation, part of the background in their character. Is this somebody that we would want working for our department representing New Braunfels Fire Department? And a lot of times, unfortunately, it's a no. And you think you're just sharing something innocently. It's my First Amendment. We hear that a lot. My First Amendment, your First Amendment right to speak the way you want does not guarantee that there aren't some form of consequences down the road.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the things that I warn my students about pretty heavily on day one. You may have been in the past posting anything you want, but you're applying for EMS and fire jobs. And even if you delete it, there are services out there where you can look back 8, 10, 12, 15 years. I've had some students who tried to get a job and they got into some trouble because something they posted during high school or when they were drunk at 3 a.m. came back to bite them on the butt. So yeah, that's definitely can be problematic. And then how long does it normally take somebody to get off the promotion list or the hiring list rather?
To get onto the list,
So they take the test and everything, and then let's say there's 85 people. Is it 6 months or a year? Is it?
so the process as a whole from our test date to the list being created is a ballpark of 4 to 6 months, depending on how quickly we can put members through background. That's the most time consuming part of it. And then for us and civil service departments, the eligibility list is good for 1 year. And so it's typically the date of testing. And then that's good for 365 days. And then once that list is either exhausted because you've hired everybody or you've removed them for some reason, or it times out, then you're able to test again.
Okay. You've done a great job of being promoted within the department. What advice do you have for day one? And then how do they start promoting within the shortest time period?
So I don't necessarily push promoting in the shortest time period because everybody has different maturity levels. I feel that when I came into the fire service, I was a little more mature. I had already gone to college, got a degree. I was a little bit older than some of the others that were here. I started in the fire service when I was 25. So it's a little bit different levels than if you're 18 or 19. With civil service, you have to do 2 years in a rank, and then you're eligible to promote. So to be successful, what I look at is being the best you can in your position. And promotion is not, I'd prefer people promote not because they don't want to be in the job that they're in, that they hate the job they're in, or they're chasing money. Those are all the wrong reasons. Have the right reason that you want to promote. Be good at your current job, and then start learning the next job. As you start developing those skills, you start building influence in the department. You'll get your crew or others that start looking at you going, hey, he's really good at EMS, really good at hose handling, whatever it may be, firefighting, and they start seeking that input. And then as you come and test to promote, you have to understand that every time you move up means more work, more responsibility. So while there is some pay raise tied to it, you have to understand that there's also higher expectations and be ready for that expectation as you move up. And some people choose to promote, some don't. And what I have always told my crews are, I don't care if you're the guy that wants to be a firefighter your entire career, or you want to be an engineer, or you want to move up through every rank, be the absolute best you can at your current position. And we need that senior guy as a tailboard. We need that senior guy as a medic, the one that just wants to do that role and succeed. And I said, I'm never going to push you to promote. There are some that I would love to see promote, but if it's not what they want, then it doesn't matter. They have to have passion and drive for that spot.
What were some of the best resources you used to promote? Was there a book or a video or a mentor, or what helped you the most?
I went through a couple different ways because I have tested quite a few times. That what I figured out works best for me is find any and every testing resource there is. So I would read every single book a couple times. I'm a very slow reader, so I use audiobooks and I read along. So I'm hearing it and I'm seeing it. And then I get those testing resources and I go through and I highlight every question that's in that book out of 5 different testing sites. And then you start seeing things that overlap as common themes. And now when I go back and read the book for the second, third, fourth time, then I'm only reading highlighted words. I'm not reading anything in white because these multiple testing sources did not capture that. I didn't get it. I'm hearing it with the audiobook, and that has been very successful for me. The last couple attempts that I tested, I was in the low A, middle 90s range. So it obviously works for me. Everybody learns a little differently. So it's finding your groove. But I definitely recommend finding other sources that have already taken test questions and then finding a way to reword that or relearn it or write your own test questions. Just something that makes you think outside the box. How would somebody phrase this as a question?
I love that. You hit so many things that I share with our students. The audit, if you do auditory and visual, your learning retention is something like 50%, whereas normally just reading something is only 10%. So you increase your chances. You also wrote some of your own questions, which is also hugely valuable. Did you ever try teaching somebody else the material?
I no. And there were recommendations from some of our chiefs that we need to work together, because if you can teach somebody, that shows what, like 80 or 90% mastery.
Yeah.
I'm competing with that person for a promotion.
Yeah.
And that's where I disagreed with the chiefs. I'm sorry. I don't mind helping somebody if it's for the betterment of the department, or if I'm at a different rank. And we're going through promotional processes right now, and I've worked with quite a few on different assessment center techniques or testing techniques. I can't, when I'm competing for a job, that's like going to a job interview going, hey, here's everything they want to know about you. Good luck to you. I'm just not wired that way.
It probably works in the classroom of students who don't have jobs yet. Probably doesn't work as well in a department where, like you said, you're competing with somebody for a job.
Yeah. When it's 15 people or 30 people for one spot, I don't want to give them any advantage over me.
Right.
And I feel that I prepare myself well enough that I would be giving them information. If I was a little more underprepared, yeah, I would want them to help me, but or us bounce things off of each other. But and it sounds negative, but it's a competitive world. And
Richard Feynman, I think, would even teach inanimate objects at times. So if you can't teach because it's a competitive thing, I could teach my mouse pad something about cardiac emergencies. Just the idea that I'm learning and I'm building models in my head as I'm teaching. Chris, as we start to wrap up, for students listening who want to build a long, respected career in the fire service, what's the one thing that they must get right? Attitude.
And, yep. I come back to the training side when I talk with the new guys, the new hires, that there's only a couple things in your career that you can control. And that's your attitude and your level of training and readiness. And if you come in and you're focused on what your job is, you have a great attitude, you're not worried about this guy's grumpy or admin told us we have to do this and we have to, if you're just like, I understand, good, I get to go help somebody, and you phrase it in a positive mindset, that goes a long way. Because we all know those people in life that you come and see them and everything about them is negative and miserable, and people don't want to be around them. Then you get those happy-go-lucky people and like, wow, you just had your house catch on fire. Why are you so happy? And they find the positive spin on things. And I'm not saying that extreme, but if you come in and I preach to these new hires, come in and worry about the things you control, have a good mindset, work on what you can control. And I was a hypocrite with this last class because I was very negative about some of the things that were happening. And I had to come and do some self-reflection and go, I can't control that. I need to fix what I can control. And that's my office, my world, the training division, that these are all things that I can influence. Instead of being down in the dumps because Joe Blow did this, I'm going to fix what we can do, and I'm going to make our training better, our orientation better. I'm going to make myself better.
How did that work out for you?
So far, it's good. It's a work in progress every day. There are some people or some things, events that stress you or push your buttons, and you go, how am I going to react to this? Am I going to be negative and grumpy? And sometimes you need that, and you need that person to go and vent to, whoever that may be. You go, okay, I got it off my chest. I'm good to go. And a lot of times they provide extra perspective to go, maybe this person's thinking this. They're not really out to get you. And I've had a couple of those the last 3-4 months, and it causes that self-reflection. Like, maybe it's just because I'm not feeling great today. I'm tired. I skipped lunch. I'm hungry today. I'm just overreactive to whatever was that trigger.
Yeah, we make up stories in our mind about their assumptions about what somebody's thinking about us or their intentions, instead of, no, they're just having a bad day. Maybe they got in a fight with their husband or their wife, or their kids are misbehaving and they don't know what to do about it.
Right.
That's a lot of different things. One more bonus question. The interview. How does somebody ace the interview?
That is tied to, interviews are hard for me because I have a lot I want to say. It doesn't necessarily come out of my mouth what's the same that's in my head. What I think a huge key point is It's just like a written test. You have to study for it. You have to prepare for it. On my last assessment center, I set up a camera and I filmed myself answering questions or doing a presentation. So I pictured myself, am I going throughout the whole thing, which I hope I'm not doing on this.
Nope.
But I tried to picture that and go, oh, and the words I'm saying correct? Am I capturing the key things that I've done in my life or in my career to show that I am the right person for this? Be honest, be open, show some weakness that you have, but don't let it all be weakness, right? There's strengths and weaknesses to everybody. And it goes, my weakness is public speaking. It's very difficult. How have I worked around that? I'm in charge of the 9/11 ceremony for New Braunfels. So I have to put myself in that spot. I am the speaker for that event. So I have to be in that role. And that would be something that I would speak on in an interview, that this was my weakness. How am I addressing it? And I think that helps me as I'm preparing. I've lined those things out. I know what I'm going to say, and hopefully it comes off the way that it's intended.
I love that advice. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you'd like to share?
I will throw out one of the, not issues that we have, but one of the areas that we see a lot of improvement is in New Braunfels. We have people that have been the EMTs, they were paramedics, they were on the ambulance, and now they're officers. So if you have some of those people listening that they are no longer riding an ambulance, but they're an officer for an EMS agency or for a fire department or whatever it may be, you have to stay involved with your ambulance crew. You have to stay up on the medicine, up on the skills. You have to help them to account, because if it matters to you as that station officer, it will matter to them. If you're checked out and you treat EMS like a bad word, then they're going to do the same thing.
It's really great. And Chief Norad, finally, a shameless or non-shameless plug for your department. If you want to say, why should somebody apply with New Braunfels Fire Department?
New Braunfels Fire Department is the largest department in between San Antonio and Austin. We're currently at 171 members, looking to grow anything from hazmat to technical rescue, ambulances. We have 2 trucks, a lot of good things going on. We've got a training center that's in development right now with the state-of-the-art burn facilities. Our medicine, since this is an EMS podcast, we do some fantastic things that we're rolling out high-tech ventilators. We give blood in the field. We do ultrasounds. We're getting critical care paramedics. We're in discussions on finger thoracostomies for those traumas. There is a lot going on that if you want to come in and do some high-speed medicine, you can absolutely do that here. And we should be testing probably in May. So come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Chief Norad, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom about the fire department EMS and what it takes to become a member of a fire-based EMS system. So I think a lot of people are really going to get a lot of benefit from this. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me on. I hope it helps.
If you'd like to become an EMT, a paramedic, or even earn your bachelor's degree in EMS from Texas State University, visit emtsacademy.com or scan the QR code on your screen. At EMTS Academy, we train the next generation of EMS professionals from the classroom to the field. Thanks for listening. And remember, the world needs more people who can stay calm, think clearly, and save lives. Until next time, stay safe.